Welcome to a one-of-a-kind experience as together we journeyed the yellow brick road. Today you'll meet some familiar characters, but we're going to see them in a whole new light as we think about this place we each call home. Please be sure to notice the names engraved on the bricks. They have made today's story possible.
We begin our story with a tornado, a sight familiar to people from Kansas and Indiana, but this tornado represents the chaos in a home when domestic violence rips it apart. Our Dorothy lives in one of those homes and experiences this destructiveness on a daily basis. But then she meets some magical characters who help her find a different path.
Oh my! Toto, are you all right? Where am I? And where's my house? And where did the tornado go? What is that pink glowing light?
Welcome, my dear. I am Glinda, the Good Witch, and you are in Oz.
Oz, it's beautiful. It looks nothing like home.
Oz is far, far away from anything you've experienced in your home, my dear. This is a safe place. Follow the yellow brick road as you seek what you are looking for.
I am looking for a home that is safe, where people respect each other. Can I find that in Oz?
You can, somewhere over the rainbow.
That was beautiful, wasn't it, Toto? Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Toto, did you notice that some of these bricks have names on them? They must be important. Parkview Health? Precision Utilities? Sweetwater Sound? CVC Communications, and many more. And those bricks? They look like they've been here a really long time. I bet that's why it says Sustaining Circle. Chris Rupp, Lydia Runge Quinn, Cammie Sutter, Joyce Armstrong Brown, and many more. I'll follow these people wherever they lead us. I have a really good feeling about them.
As Dorothy continues her journey, you can help people just like her find a safe home with a special contribution. After the program, make your own journey to YWCA Northeast Indiana's homepage at ywcanein.com and click the Donate to Circle button.
Oh my! Who are you?
My name is Scarecrow.
And what are you looking for?
I seem to have lost my brain.
Oh my!
What brings you here?
I'm looking for a home that is safe, where people respect each other. The Good Witch Glenda told me to follow the yellow brick road, but I don't know where it leads.
It leads to the Emerald City and the Great Wizard of Oz. Maybe he could help you find a safe home.
Maybe he could help you find a brain.
If I only had a brain, I would want to know everything about a place that you call a safe home.
There is such a place in the land of Northeast Indiana, not all that far from Kansas. In this special place, there is a powerful force called YWCA Northeast Indiana. The YWCA provides help and support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for anyone who is in crisis because of domestic violence. Women, men, children, transgender individuals, and families of all types. Their crisis shelter is available for individuals or families who need a safe place to stay. And community advocates work one-on-one with individuals who are experiencing domestic violence but are not in need of shelter. Therapy services are available free for survivors along with aftercare support. Advocates help individuals focus on personal goals and self-esteem after they have survived the crisis of domestic violence. And the volunteers are out of this world. One of them is Peggy Hobbs. Peggy established the YWCA Domestic Violence Shelter in 1976. Because of her, a safe home really is possible. Every year, the YWCA presents a special award in Peggy's name. Meet her on the YWCA Circle page.
Wow, my head is so full of facts, I don't have room for a brain.
What is that?
That is the Munchkins of the Lollipop Guild. You are really going to like them.
From now on, you'll be history. You'll be history. And we will glorify your name. You'll be a bust, be a bust in the Hall of Fame.
Represent the Lullaby League, the Lullaby League, the Lullaby League, and in the name of the Lullaby League, we wish to welcome you to Munchkin
We represent the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild, and in the name of the Lollipop Guild, we wish to welcome you to Munchkin Land.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. We hear he is a wizard of whiz, if ever a whiz there was. If ever, oh ever a whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because of the wonderful things he does. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
I do like the Munchkins. I really do. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road.
There's my good friend the Tin Man. Don't be afraid. He is a very good Tin Man.
Yes, I am. But I could be better. If only I had a heart, I would listen to it, especially when it tells me to help others. You see, I met a very powerful person who has a heart of gold, just like these bricks.
Tell us about him.
His name is Casey Gwen. He has invested his career in helping victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. Because of his own journey through abuse and the impact of childhood trauma, he is a passionate advocate for Munchkins who are experiencing domestic violence in their homes. He runs a national domestic violence and sexual assault prevention organization called Alliance for Hope International. And Casey is the founder of the first camp in America focused on children exposed to domestic violence, Camp Hope America. What makes Casey really special? He understands the power of hope.
Thanks, Tin Man. What an honor it is to be part of a Wizard of Oz theme for the YWCA's virtual fundraiser this year. We certainly had to pivot and navigate in the middle of COVID-19, but yet this message of hope that we're going to talk about tonight is so incredibly important when it comes to the work of the YWCA and the lives of those that it touches. The Wizard of Oz story really is the science of hope. You've got Dorothy, who's really a leader. You've got each of the characters who are trying to find something, setting a goal and trying to find a pathway. You've got the yellow brick road, which really is the pathway. And then these distractors, these things that come along and actually kind of steer people off the path, that make them afraid, that make them feel vulnerable, that make them feel like they can't do it. Traumatic things, scary things. And yet the goal is to get back on the pathway and look forward in life. So I'm very honored today to be able to talk about the science of hope as part of all this. I didn't even know 8 years ago in my life as the president of Alliance for Hope International that you could measure hope in a human being. I didn't know that it was more predictive of well-being than anything else. And I certainly didn't know that you can teach it. I thought hope was simply an emotion, a positive feeling. I hope you have a great day. I hope the weather's nice today. I didn't understand that when I was saying things like that, it was just a wish thrown into the universe because I had no control over the weather. I had no control over somebody's weekend or what was going on in the world, but I did have control over my own life. So in 2012, I met a man named Dr. Chan Hellman. Chan Hellman is the director of the Hope Research Center at the University of Oklahoma, the leading hope scholar and hope researcher today in the world. And when I met him, I was talking about a camp that we run for children impacted by domestic violence called Camp Hope America. And I was telling him about it, how you really need to take kids that have trauma, violence, and abuse in their lives like the YWCA does, and then help them find a pathway forward to healing and to a future that's bright and shining. And Chan said, well, do you measure hope in the work you're doing at Camp Hope America? And I said, you can't measure hope. And he said, I'm a quantitative psychologist. I can measure anything. To which I thought, and you're pretty arrogant too. And after we got over that, he didn't like me because I was a lawyer from California, and I didn't like him because being a quantitative psychologist has never been anything that was of any interest in my life. We developed a relationship. And out of that relationship, I began to understand the science of hope. Here's the basics of how it works. We're born with hope. Human beings are by definition hope-centered creatures. Babies can't articulate their goals in life. They can't articulate a future focus, but they have needs/goals. And if those needs are met, babies do so much better in life than if those needs aren't met. And as we get older, we can start to articulate goals, even as children. And we can start to figure out how do we get to where we want to be, or how do we do what we want to do. And through the journey of life, that's what healthy human beings do. They have the ability to contextualize what happens in the past and then be able to point themselves forward and decide what are the goals I want to set, who I want to be, what I want to do, and how am I going to get there. That, in essence, is the science of hope. The problem is that adversity, illness, disease, trauma, they all rob us of hope. And it could be lots of things. It could be child abuse and domestic violence and things like sexual assault, things the YWCA works on in its amazing work in Indiana. It could also be things like illness or disease or the loss of a family member or even a natural disaster or other kinds of things that rob people of hope in their life. A number of years ago, my daughter, who was running Camp Hope America, Carrie Ann Johansson, 2016, she was diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer called gray zone lymphoma. It's an incredibly rare cancer. Only 300 cases have been diagnosed in the history of medicine. And at the age of 28, Carrie Ann was diagnosed with this amazingly lethal disease. And you talk about the robbery of hope, the battle for hope in our family. Suddenly, we had no control over what was happening. This lymphoma was growing and spreading in her body, and we had no ability to know how to navigate it. But Carrie Ann grew up in a home without any childhood trauma, violence, or abuse, and she's a very high hope young woman. And she started saying, Dad, I got to set some goals. I got to figure some stuff out. We finally found a doctor that had actually had a surviving gray zone patient. Very few people survive this disease. And we found a doctor that had a patient that had survived it. We went to the doctor. We sat down with the doctor, and Carrie Ann said, well, I want to set a goal for having children when this is over. And the doctor said, Carrie Ann, I'm so sorry. It's probably not going to be possible for you to have children because this disease and the chemotherapy that you have to do may impact your reproductive organs. And Carrie Ann said, then I want to set a goal to harvest eggs before I start chemo. And Dr. Martin Xavier said, Carrie Ann, you don't have time to harvest eggs. If you don't start chemo in 3 weeks, you're going to die. And that was an incredible loss and pain, realizing maybe she wouldn't be able to have children. And then Carrie Ann said, well, I want to start setting some goals to figure out what kind of nutrition I should have as I go through chemo. And Dr. Xavier didn't know a lot about nutrition. Not many doctors do. And she said, well, you're just going to have to eat as much as you can and keep up your strength through this. But Carrie Ann set a different goal. She decided to learn everything she could about cancer and about how cancer is fed by poor nutrition. And the answer is sugar feeds cancer. And as Carrie Ann started to understand that, she said, Dad, I'm going to set a goal that I'm going to get all processed sugar out of my body. I'm going to go into chemo without any sugar in my body. And she went into what's called a ketogenic diet, and she eliminated sugar from her body. And then as she learned more and more about chemo, she said, I can set a goal, Dad, that I'm going to fast during every 5-day hospital-based cycle of chemo. And my goal is going to be to make sure that I've got all the toxins out of my body, and I just hydrate and let my body fight through this with the chemo and the cancer. And she did for 6 months. And Carrie Ann survived. She had joined a gray zone lymphoma group with 14 others who had been diagnosed with gray zone lymphoma, and they all died, every single one of them. But Carrie Ann survived. By the grace of God, and certainly by the goals she set and the pathways she decided to pursue toward those goals. So an incredible attack on hope, but the ability to say, what can I control in my life? What goals can I set? What can I do? And that's exactly the journey that caused Carrie Ann just 15 months ago to have a 12-pound, 10-ounce baby boy that she was so honored to give birth to. Wow, the power of hope. So we talk about being born with hope. We talk about how adversity, illness, disease, all kinds of things can rob us of hope. And then we talk about a person's ability to make different choices. And children are robbed of hope the first in all of the culture, in all of society. They're always robbed first. And the battle and the work of the YWCA and so many organizations dealing with sexual and domestic violence is, how do you then restore that hope? It's all about the restoration of hope. Mother Teresa understood this many years ago. She was asked before she died what the calling of humanity was. And she said, we must give hope, always hope. And she did it in the slums of Calcutta and beyond. She figured out how when people get robbed of hope, you've got to restore it back to them. First, with basic, tangible needs in their life, meeting their basic needs around medical care and food and housing and those kinds of things. And then restoring security, and then restoring dignity. And then, in the words of Abraham Maslow, creating community and connections for people that have suffered trauma, violence, and abuse. And then ultimately getting to the point where they start to believe that they deserve to be treated better than they've experienced. They deserve to be able to start to heal. And then, if some of you who are social workers know, in 1955, when Abraham Maslow talked about all of this, at the top of his pyramid of human needs, surviving trauma, he put self-actualization at the top of that pyramid. Self-actualization is the ability to contextualize the bad things that have happened in your life and then move forward toward who you want to be and what you want to do. Hope is the belief that your future can be better than your past and that you play a role in making it so by the goals you set and the pathways you pursue. It's the same thing, self-actualization and hope. And so when you see Maslow's hierarchy in all of our work today and Dr. Chan Hellman's work at the University of Oklahoma, what you see at the top of that pyramid is not self-actualization. You see what's at the top of that pyramid is hope. And so we're in the hope business. Everything that you're supporting at the YWCA is about helping staff that work in this organization and volunteers and all their allied programs to help increase hope, to restore hope again in people's lives. The biggest challenge in all of our research as we've been developing all of the work around the science of hope has been this. There's another pyramid besides Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, and it's called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Pyramid. And that pyramid has a foundation not of meeting basic human needs, but the foundation of that is what's called adverse childhood experiences. Things that happen in childhood, like witnessing domestic violence or being physically or sexually abused or being abandoned or having parents who get a divorce or having an incarcerated parent or having a drug or alcohol addicted parent or a parent with a mental illness or suffering emotional abuse and verbal abuse. Each of those things, which are called adverse childhood experiences, there's 10 of them in the so-called adverse childhood experiences study that goes with that pyramid. Those things happening in childhood without intervention, without mitigation, tend to impact brain development. They ultimately impact what's called social and emotional intelligence. Then they start to impact what are called health risk behaviors. As adolescents and as young people and even as adults, people start making really unhealthy decisions about coping mechanisms and way they can navigate the bad things that have happened in their life. And when you follow that pyramid to the next level, it starts producing disease, disability, and even adult victimization and criminality. And at the very top of the ACE pyramid is something called early death. Maslow's hierarchy, top of the pyramid, the science of hope, hope's at the top. In the ACEs pyramid, at the top of that pyramid is early death. So the ACE score is between 0 and 10. Somebody that grows up in a healthy, functional home without any of those abusive factors scores a 0 on the ACE scale. My wife scores a 0 on the ACE scale. She grew up in a very healthy, functional home. I score a 5 on the ACE scale because I grew up in a home impacted by generations of violence and abuse. And at the higher that score gets, from 0 to 10, the more likely people are to have major long-term consequences in their life. And when you get to a 6 on the ACE scale, you're at the top of the ACE pyramid. And on average, somebody with an ACE score of 6 dies 20 years younger than somebody with an ACE score of 0. So the work of the YWCA, the research on the science of hope and adverse childhood experiences, tells us we can change that destiny. We can change that traumatic ending, that premature death. We can come in and with hope, we can mitigate and heal trauma, because an ACE score that's high is not a destiny. Lots of people grow up with high ACE scores and live long, productive lives. I have a high ACE score, But I went through Stanford University and UCLA School of Law and became a prosecutor in San Diego, California in 1985. Went on to get married and raise 3 children who I did not abuse in any way, shape, or form. No physical violence of any kind, no physical discipline of any kind, because my father had done things to me in the name of discipline that I sent people to jail for as a prosecutor. So I couldn't repeat that cycle. I had to break that cycle. And by breaking that cycle, my kids, now a generation later, all have 0 ACE scores. It doesn't mean life is all rosy. They still have challenges in their lives, and they did grow up with me as their father. So I'm sure there are challenges in their life, but their challenges aren't related to childhood trauma. So the business we're in, and why I'm so honored to support this event that you're watching right now, is that hope heals trauma. Hope heals trauma. And when a group of people come together and hope starts to rise in the lives of a group of people, like the staff and supporters and volunteers of the YWCA, that's something we call collective hope. And collective hope is even more powerful than individual hope. So if I'm all alone somewhere in the world dealing with the things that have happened to me, it's very hard, number one, for me to overcome those things, because hope is always relational, or what Chan Hellman calls a social gift. People don't usually recover all by themselves. They need cheerleaders, they need mentors, they need advocates, they need supporters in their lives that believe in them, and they're helping them to set goals and find pathways to their goals. But beyond that, we've got to understand that when we're talking about collective hope, it means that a group of people have come together, all of their hope scores are rising, and when all of their hope scores rise, there's more power in collective hope than there is in individual hope. So the work of the YWCA is really, at the end of the day, not about just providing services and programs, shelter or support or some need that victims have. The real work of the YWCA is to create a culture of hope that then welcomes adults and children who have experienced trauma, violence, and abuse into that culture of hope. Not with the YWCA staff up here and survivors down here, but with the YWCA staff here and survivors here. And then it becomes what we call the power of we. It's not we're helping those people or those families. We are coming together to say there are lots of bad things in the world. And today we're dealing with more of those than ever. Structural racism, systemic racism, the impacts of generations of historic oppression, the impacts of centuries of slavery, and then segregation and Jim Crow and so many other things that have impacted the Black community, and other kinds of things that impact other marginalized communities and communities of color. But in the midst of all those things, if we can come together and if we can start supporting others in a way that we would like to be supported when we find ourselves in a tough place, that power produces redemption and transformation in an organization, in a society, and yes, at the basis level, foundational level, in an individual human being. So as I wrap up my comments here, I just want to say thank you for supporting the YWCA. I never imagined that I would be talking today in 2020 about the science of hope, even 10 years ago. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how it worked. And since then, we've learned so many things that are relevant today to the work of the YWCA. One, you can measure hope in a human being, which is really exciting. I know the YWCA is looking at ways that they can actually start measuring it in the work they do with adults and kids. Two, you can teach it. You can teach hope. So when we were beginning the camp we run for children impacted by domestic violence called Camp Hope America, I didn't understand that. I didn't think you could actually teach hope to kids. And then I found out that children can understand it, not the adult version, but the kid version. So the adult version that I shared earlier, hope is the belief that your future can be better than your past and that you play a role in making it so by the goals you set and the pathways you pursue. I couldn't teach that to a 7-year-old. But when I said to a 7-year-old, hope is believing in yourself, believing in others, and believing in your dreams, really the story of the Wizard of Oz, then kids could understand it. And I would say, What does it mean to believe in yourself? And a 7-year-old would say, well, to believe that I can do things and that I can decide what I want to do and then I can go do it. Yes, that you've survived really bad things, and now that pain that you experienced can become power in your life. And you can start setting goals because of the ways you survived. You're strong and you're able, and you have the ability now to go forward from those bad things that have happened in your life. What does it mean to believe in others? And they might struggle a little bit with that. Well, it means that I'm nice to other people. But how would they know that you believe in them? Well, I might cheer for them. I might tell them I'm proud of them or that you did good at something. Yes, so it's affirmation and encouragement. So practicing that, I'm so proud of you. I love the way you're doing this. Or if we want to get really deep, and a 7 or 8-year-old can understand this, I'm going to look for character in them. Like, what is it about them? And the kids will say, well, they're brave, or they're patient, or they're kind. Yes, those are character traits. And if you praise character traits in other people, you're actually believing in them in a really substantive way, not for things they do, but for who they are and who they're becoming. And then that third piece of the children's definition is hope is believing in yourself, believing in others, and believing in your dreams. And some kids already have big dreams, but lots of kids that have experienced trauma, violence, and abuse, their dreams have to start really small. So in a week of camp, we might say, what's your dream for this week? Well, my dream for this week is I want to go on the zip line. That's a great dream. I love that goal. So what do you have to do to get ready to go on the zip line? Well, I got to go through the orientation course, and then I got to get my helmet, and then I got to get my harness, and then I got to get trained, and then I got to find a buddy and all that. Yep, those are all the steps to get there, and then you can accomplish that goal. And sure enough, when we challenge kids to do something they're scared of, like a zip line or whitewater rafting or lots of other things we do at camp across the United States, out comes hope. Because kids that grow up with violence and abuse are afraid all the time. They live in fear. Their amygdala is firing in the limbic system of their brain. They're hypervigilant all the time, scared of everything, everywhere they go. And then they come to camp, they're scared of a whitewater raft, or they're scared of a climbing wall, they're scared of a zip line. And then they do it, and out comes courage, and everybody's cheering for them, and now they've defeated fear, and they've actually accomplished a goal, and that produces a rise in hope in their life. So now that we know that we can measure it, and that we can cultivate it, and that we can teach it, we have the tools to take the science of hope forward. Dorothy did it. She did it all. She actually kept encouraging them. She didn't ignore what we call the survival period, when they were so scared, when the Tin Man was so scared, or the lion was. She didn't ignore it. She didn't demean their pain. She didn't pretend like it wasn't happening. She leaned in and met them where they were. I'm so sorry this is happening. It's going to be okay. I'm here with you. She did all of those things, but eventually she had to get them to go forward down the yellow brick road, because trauma always looks backward and hope always looks forward. And she had to get them to go forward till eventually they were able to realize that inside them, inside these amazing survivors in the story of the Wizard of Oz, they had the power, they had the ability. They just had to be reminded that the goals they had to set would be things they had control over, and the pathways they would choose would be things they had control over. And they realized they couldn't do it alone. They had to do it together. That, friends, is the science and the power of hope. And I'm so honored to be part of this fundraiser for the YWCA. And I say blessings on all of you for the work you're doing. Blessings on all of you who are supporting the YWCA. You are hope givers. Thank you so much for your passionate commitment to make a difference in the lives of both adults and children impacted by trauma, violence, and abuse. The answer is very, very, very clear. Hope rising.
Casey, thank you for teaching us about the power of hope. Tin Man, thank you for introducing us to your good friend Casey. I know we're on the right path now. Tin Man, let's go find your heart. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road.
Follow the yellow brick road.
Follow the
Make him stop, he's scaring me.
You scared us first. I know people like you, people in my own home who hurt us and scare us and think they are so brave. I'm so sorry. Oh, you're not so ferocious after all, are you?
I'm really just a scaredy cat. If only I had courage. Like the courage that it takes to leave an unsafe home.
Courage is easier when you have someone to help you find it.
I know a place. It's called YWCA Northeast Indiana. They have a 24/7 hotline and crisis shelter and programs to help people find a safe place and a healthy life.
We've heard of them. How can we help?
Our support makes all the difference in helping people with the courage they need to seek out services. YWCA is funded by donations from brave people just like you across our community. If you can help fund the YWCA, they can make sure that anyone who is scared has a safe place to go.
Together, I know we can do it.
Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road.
I think I knew all along that this wizard didn't have the answers.
Now I know so much more than when this journey began.
Now I've learned to listen to my heart.
And I've learned that we all have more courage when we help each other.
But will I ever find a safe home?
You've always had the power, my dear. You've just had to discover it for yourself.
It is possible for every home in Northeast Indiana to be a safe home. Follow your heart. Please donate now. The link will be active for a few days. There is no place like a safe home. There is no place like a safe home. There is no place like a safe home.